Hello, Internet. Welcome to Miscellaneous Theory, where we go for the theories that no one ever has time or wanting to actually sit there and make. And today's theory, as I have already said, is water wet. Now, this isn't going to be a long theory at all, because it's not really that hard to debate and you can sum this up pretty fast. And since there's no reason for me to prolong it for any type of revenue or money or anything, I'll just come out and flat out say it. If you're thinking about water, it always comes between what water is made of, and that is H2O and oxygen. Well, I'm stupid. I meant to say hydrogen and not H2O because H2O is made of oxygen and hydrogen. But basically, with what I'm trying to say is, people say that water is not wet because it basically gets other things wet, meaning it can't make itself its own property. Well, that would be true if it was the original property that caused the wetness. You see, oxygen, obviously, as most of us know, is what we are quite literally inhaling and breathing every single day of our lives, which is its own sort of element, pretty much, and everyone knows what it does. That one doesn't need much explaining. But hydrogen, on the other hand, is a type of element in which also goes along the method of gasoline and a few other things as well. Water is one of those things, but the reason I mention this now is because the reason why hydrogen is there is the thing that's making the water wet itself. It is making water have that property to make other things wet, and since without that actual element inside of it, it would not be able to make other things wet. And the best example is slime. There are things of slime that are made without water, and still it has a wet feeling, but it does not make other things wet. The reason behind that is because there is no hydrogen in there for it to make other things wet. So for example, say if you somehow found a way to make slime without, no, hold on. So for example, say that you were trying to make some type of water without hydrogen, which I know sounds pretty crazy, but we've done crazier things in this world before. If you think about that, trying to do that would be the equivalent of trying to make something like slime. For example, it would be liquidy, you could probably still be able to drink it, but it's like as if you're using some type of H2O repellent. It would not be able to touch it. Like basically, if you pour it on something, it would be water resistant, meaning it would just slide off, making it not necessarily waterproof. The reason I mention this is because if you're really going into a thought like this, all you have to really think about is, oh, it can't touch it, so it can't get it wet. So a water without being able to get something wet would basically be like having everything waterproof or making the water waterproof, basically meaning that it can't get wet, which is the whole point of something being waterproof, getting something to make it not become wet. But the thing about it is, all you have to do is find a way to remove said element of hydrogen and replace it with something else to make it to where it would no longer be making other things wet. But if it is like that because of the hydrogen, that means that these things that feel wet themselves, not all have hydrogen in them, but the ones that can make other things wet as well, like transferring that wetness feeling, are things with hydrogen. Hydrogen is the main key component to what I am trying to get about the point of that water does and always will be wet. Because without hydrogen, it wouldn't be able to get other things wet. Then no one would be able to have the whole say that it can't make itself its own property. But the thing about it is, it making itself its own property isn't the thing. Because the wetness is not the property of water, it is the property of hydrogen. Hydrogen cannot be wet, but it can make other things wet because it is a component of that. While water can be wet and can get other things wet because it is a component of hydrogen. Without hydrogen, these things would be able to be non-wet, but also give off the property of being wet. So that is all I have to say for now, and that is the reasoning why water is wet. And remember, that's not a theory, that's a factual statement. Until next time, with Bonnie versus Goku, hopefully.